So Jay, this is my first time meeting you, and
Yeah.
tell me about yourself. You're in the insurance industry.
Rewind. At some point, I wanted to deploy the same strategies for.
For agents on. How do you even market? How do you even find good people that want to do what you're doing?
We've mostly been word of mouth since the beginning. At some point, it's like every time I'll rewind. At some point, I wanted to deploy the same strategies for lead acquisition for agent acquisition. So, building out funnels and then taking interviews through the funnel. So paid traffic to a landing page, VSL, same exact process that we use for lead acquisition for agent acquisition and then sourcing talent that way. I haven't got around to it. Every time it seems I'm on the verge of doing it. New constraint, these last 2.5 years have been the wildest roller coaster of my entire life. I knew nothing about the life insurance business, so I just jumped headfirst into building a brokerage without any idea of what I was doing and stumbled my way to where I'm at today. So our lead acquisition really has just been word of mouth. At one point, we were maybe 20, 30 strong, and then we had a big wave of losing agents because I early this year we made a big mistake of scaling really, really fast without understanding our persistency issues, and it led to a lot of business charging back. And then I lost a lot of agents in the process and had debt roll up from carriers. So now we've only started to we put a halt to accepting anybody. And then just in the last about 60 days, we've onboarded a new class. But it's all been word of mouth, just the current agents that work here using social media. All of it's been social media, but they're organic traffic. So then making posts on their personal profiles, just talking about the opportunity. And that's how we've been able to acquire agents. We're not big by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
But I think
that's a sizable team. Are these people all over the U.S. working from home?
no. So I have an office here downtown Orlando.
Oh, all right, that's
Mhm.
great. So again, that's my bias, but I like that esprit de corps. I like the people coming in, knowing each other personally, doing the same work. But I know there's some teams that are just fantastic, but they're spread out, all over the place.
No, everybody's in house here.
Awesome. So you got those costs too, though. You got the overhead for housing, for the office space for everybody, and the infrastructure for that. You provide the phones, or do people use their cell phones?
So we use VoIP. So our new guys use their own cell phones. That's how they sort of get started. And then eventually they'll just get a headset, Salesforce account, 59 dialer, and then they have an automated dialer that'll dial out all of their leads that are already pre-booked appointments. And that's pretty much our process. We'll be moving off of Salesforce though once my contract ends in February.
How come?
Salesforce, it just got way more than we need. And because it has way more than we need, it's also too complicated. I spent like $10,000 just on a Salesforce developer to customize it for us. And it didn't even end up doing what I needed it to do. So Salesforce is contractual. The biggest problem for me specifically, because I'm a smaller organization and we have struggled with agent turnover. When you purchase a license, you can't retract that license. So then you're paying for that license in perpetuity. So I have a lot more licenses that I need, and I'm still paying for them. And then they're contractual. So yeah, it's been a headache. We're just going to go back to go high level and simplify things.
Go high levels, it's its own challenge, right? But at least you're not held to those contracts. You can design it, right? You got your
Yeah.
own personal design space in there. I bought Go High Level a couple of years ago and have basically given it to some of my people to say, hey, use this, go ham. And that's what that financial advisor I mentioned before that's running basically a marketing business within this financial advisory, that's what they're using. And then I noticed a lot of, even we have a proprietary CRM. It was built from the ground up about 16 years ago, starting then, and has become our core CRM, highly, highly integrated and personalized into our business model. So it's not such someone can pick up and grab usually.
Yeah.
But even they bought Go High Level shortly after I did and have plugged that into the back end to
Mm.
accomplish additional features, right?
Yeah.
So I'm seeing it's funny as you go to websites and stuff and you can tell, oh, they use Go High Level on the back of this thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So like it's become like Microsoft Office as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Businesses, maybe I'm old school. I know all the cool kids are using Google suite of products now, but to me it's
Yeah.
Microsoft Office. You got Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You're not in business if you don't have that stuff. And what you can do
Yeah.
with it is up to your skills, and that's what Go High Level is now for marketing. It's just the suite you've got to have. Although we're using them for our, we restarted our website about 2
Okay.
years ago too, and I don't think they're the best. They're okay, but they're a little clunky as far as website design. What do you do for your training? Is a person in an initial training process for several weeks or several months before they can do X, Y, or Z, or do you get them into the sales? And do you have a base? Do you offer a base of some kind?
No base. We're fully 100% commissioned as well. Our process, we have something called the agent launch training. So essentially, agent gets licensed first and foremost. Once they're licensed, then what I've been doing over the last year is once we have a batch of agents, we put them into a class and we start them all at the same time, and they go through a 7-day curriculum where we kind of take them from A to Z in terms of the insurance space. So just teaching them all about all the different types of life insurance products out there. And then we spend a lot of time really just deep diving exclusively into the IUL space. So teaching them all of the different funding strategies, the index accounts, participation rates, spreads, floors, fees. Essentially, we try to make them an IUL expert as quickly as possible. After that, we spend about a week role playing, about 3 to 4 hours a day for 5 days straight. And then once they're finished role playing, this is now about 2 weeks in. So they've spent roughly about 5 to 7 days, depending on the pace of the training class, going through our agent launch training, which is already formatted. And then the next 5 days role playing for a few hours a day. And then after that, they'll start to set appointments. So they start as setters at the very beginning. So all they're doing is just dialing, and then they'll be setting for their closer. So we usually pair about 1 to 2 setters to a closer. And then they'll do that. That's usually, we call that our incubation period. And this is usually maybe, it can be as, I've seen agents as short as maybe 7 days in an incubation period. Other agents, maybe 2 months. Really just depends on how acclimated the agent is, how well they can articulate the process, how many appointments are they setting, do they feel comfortable now potentially starting to do the discovery session, do they feel comfortable going through an entire presentation. Some agents are eager to move faster than others, so we have no problem just moving them through the process a lot quicker, assuming that they're capable. Other agents a little bit more hesitant, so they stay in the setter phase a little bit longer. And then we have some criteria for expectations on whether we retain the agent or don't retain the agent. So usually the incubation period is where we make our decision to know if we're going to move forward with the agent permanently, or if we just part ways at the end of the incubation period, depending on whether they hit their KPIs or not.
We call it transition, kind of similar. People come on their first week and they'll have 3 to 4 days, depending on the office that they're attached to and doing the training. And they'll do training with various teachers, trainers, mentors, maybe the office manager as well. We'll do different phases because we have a lot more products for them, but we're not going over everything. That would be silly. But we're focusing on fact finding and then Medicare and final expense. That's pretty much the main area. And then how to generate the referral and find the opportunities for the other larger business pieces, right? And that's the first week. And then they're in the field, but they partner with a mentor is what we call them. And that mentor, the first week, for the first 3 weeks, they're on most of their appointments. They'll go on between about 30 to 45 appointments in their first 3 weeks with those with their mentor. Well, maybe in those 3 weeks, there might be a couple days where they go on their own. After about 5 to 6 days in the field with a mentor, you're the agent's starting to fall asleep in the appointment. They're hearing the same jokes, they're hearing the same thing, and then you say, okay, you've had 5, 6 days straight with multiple appointments with me. I need you to spend a whole day going on appointments on your own, and go there and make some sales, right? Man, you wake up then, right? You're out. They have all sorts of new questions, right? Because we need to get our nose bloodied a little bit, or find some
Right.
early successes, which is great. So we call that all transition, where they're working very closely with their mentor. They're on a lot of appointments. They're doing a lot of joint work. Early agents do a ton of joint work here, because you're not going to learn the whole field at once. One of the best
Yeah.
things about your operation is because it is so targeted. So someone can actually learn and begin to master that sales process, that product, and understand it, and not worry about, oh, I have 50 other things.
Right.
So
Right.
that's our downside, is that there is a lot to learn. Upside
Mhm.
is, there's also a lot more opportunity of different things you can do in different households, all that stuff. But you do pay for it up front by learning it. So we call it transition. Once a person makes 10 sales on their own, all by their lonesome without the assistance of their mentor, then they're out of what we call transition. That's their
Nice.
simplified KPI. They got to pass off some role play and show that they can do some
Right.
things too. There's that. But really the core KPI is, did you go outside of your mentor's appointments? Or you can be 2 weeks in and say, hey, can I go on the next 2 days by myself and not with you? Sure, that's great. That means you're developing the confidence. You'll come back. They don't do any splits on their own. They don't have to pay for their appointment to the mentor or anything like that. And we want the agent to get out there and learn and start getting success. But we're always here. So usually what happens is there's continued joint work for months and months, usually on the bigger cases. So the agent knows enough to bring up the right conversations to then get their mentor or maybe the financial advisor involved, so that those cases get closed and developed right. But as soon as the agent starts developing and doing those on their own, more power to them, right?
Yeah.
So it's all individual.
Sweet. I'd imagine that it takes a lot more time, considering you guys do house quite an extensive repertoire of products.
What are you looking for? What's your ideal candidate? And what are people you really don't want as candidates?
As far as I think the ideal candidate is I don't know, pretty who would I want as an ideal candidate. I think for the most part, all of us sort of look for all of the characteristics that are associated with success. Obviously, being driven, wanting. I think, as cliche as it sounds, man, I hate it, but having a strong why is really hard. I think it's one of the most important things for what I look for and in what I usually see in people that I'm like, oh, this person's going to be really good. I think the lack of vision or the lack of importance as to why it is that someone feels like they need to be successful, as opposed to why it is that someone feels like they want to be successful, ends up usually being the variable that determines who ends up being a star and who doesn't end up being a star. I think fundamentally this business is teachable and it can be learned to almost anyone. I don't think people are born salesmen. I think the art of selling is something that anyone can learn. And what I've often found is hard work does usually beat talent, due to the fact that anything is learnable and teachable. So what I found is sometimes people, they get into this business and it takes them a long time to get up and running. One of the top performers, out of 28 months, he's been the number one sales rep. 27 out of those 28 months, and the only month that he lost was a month that he took an extended vacation. And when he first started because he was with me at the previous company. He didn't make a dollar for 3 months straight. He was one of the worst there, but he was always the first one in and the last one out. And he's since just been this sort of pillar and case study of showing that you don't have to be the smartest in the room. You don't have to feel like the world's best salesman. If you have good mentors, if you have a good process, and if you're willing to learn and take the bruises and the nosebleeds, as you mentioned earlier, long enough, I think those end up being the stars. So in summary, I really look for drive above all else, because I do feel like everything else can be taught. And I often find that people that come in with too much experience are often less coachable than others that come in with no experience. So I think like that's probably the biggest thing I look for is like, what's your story? Why is it important for you to be successful? And if there's attunement there, then I think that usually ends up being a strong candidate. And I would say that's sort of been my compass for the most part since the beginning. And I've sort of had just like positive feedback associated to that from just saying, oh, this person has a strong reason as to why they want to be successful. And then I usually see them find success. And then the people that I often meet that they don't really have a definitive reason, they lack vision, they're not really too sure, they just kind of want to make money. Those people often don't end up seeing the same level of success as the other ones that sort of have that story behind them.
I completely agree that motivation. That's one of the reasons I like 100% commission is, so I think this topic came up and I started referring to experience with my dad, and I don't think I got to what caused that thought process. So it's this, is that he had done this for a long time through various companies in models, and he watched companies that would go from 100% commission to base and then back to 100% commission. And then when they got new management, they'd try a base again.
Yeah.
And then they'd eventually go back to, because they saw, and we tried this too, despite knowing past outcomes, you always think, well, okay, well, maybe this will work.
Yeah.
Because you empathize with the pain you see some people go through if they're not financially awesome when they start, right? And so you think, well, and then you also turn down some people that aren't financially prepared that you wish you could have been able to bring on. So you try it, right? But here's what I've noticed. It hasn't made, there's always the exceptions. There's going to be one or two people out there, and I've seen them, where it works because there was a base. But it's a really small exception. But otherwise, it does not move the needle almost at all. I'll admit it could move the needle just a tiny bit. But what you do is you end up spending a ton more money for acquisition, a ton more money overall. And people who would not have been successful on 100% commission are almost never successful on a base that eventually turns to 100%. I'm okay if I'm wrong on that. I know there's people that do different models that execute it perhaps better, but that's our experience. And I think there's kind of a no man's land in there as far as income. And people they either make 50, 60, maybe 80 $1,000, or then there's a no man's land and they make 120, 200, $300,000. And there's that why, there's that just who they are. Everyone's got a comfort level. And I watch it, even my successful agents. I got agents that get very quickly to a comfort level of $60,000 to $85,000 in that range. And I see their activity just really go down and level out.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'll tell you, and then the next one tends to be around 120,000 is the comfort level for people. And then above that's about 150. And then after that, you get the people who really, they're just always trying to go to the next level. Now, I don't totally mind that, because that's supposed to be one of the great things about this business, right? Is once you get those renewals, you have control of your time. You're not working for a corporation. You're not a W-2. So my job is to inspire and support. If I think they should be in the field making more sales, it's because, one, they want to meet their goals, or two, they like something they're now attracted to and they want to adjust their goals, right? Maybe there's a product line they never really clicked with. Maybe it's annuities. They're 5 years in and they never clicked with selling more than a few annuities a year. And they want to be part of the crowd that are selling them every week. So we go to work on that, right? So we're working, the why is big, but the financial part, we always ask a bunch of financial questions. These are not W-2s, they're 1099. So I ask away, right? W-2 is different, right? I'm not going to ask them financial questions. I'm going to ask them family questions because I'm legally not allowed to.
Right.
But 1099, they're starting a business, 100% commission. I'm going to be real with them. I give a crap about these people. I do not screw around with people's livelihood. If this is not the right time to start this career, they shouldn't. Okay. I've had people come a year back, 6 months to a year later. I've said, hey, you should hit this financial target in savings before it is prudent for you to come on. And then sometimes people actually do that. They call us up and they say, hey, I'm ready. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's see, there's that. Sales background helps, but it's not necessary. I didn't have a sales background, none. If they do, I want to know if they have a good sales background. Were they good at what they did? By their
And we
answer,
know
right?
there's a lot of bad sales backgrounds.
Yes. If they tell you they're average, it's not a good sign. Everyone who was bad at it says, now, sometimes they had a bad experience because the operation they were at sucked. It could suck. Okay.
Right.
They could be coming from a bad situation.
Absolutely.
So you just got to it's just one data point, right? So average is not the answer. You want to hear someone who knows their numbers and was very proud to tell you and wants to tell you. They've been waiting for you to ask. Yeah. They've been dying for it. To tell you, oh, I was number one these 3 months in a row, but this jerk took it away from me. But I got him back in the next. You want to hear that?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I like the 100% commission because it's motivation. It takes that why and it turns into a need, not a want.
You eat what you hunt.
I think fear is useful. At least it was for me. So should be excited about the career, but it's okay to have some fear that you need to make the money, to pay the bills, take care of your family, do the whole thing, right? I actually feel bad for people who have, not totally bad, who really don't have any financial mountain to overcome. Right? They got a spouse that takes care of everything. That's great. That's really wonderful. But there's one thing I had that they don't get that was a blessing. I had a spouse, but she was used to being full-time mom, 2 kids, one on the way, in 2 houses. This was 2008. I had one underwater from Seattle that we couldn't get rid of for 10 years, right? And so I was making about $6,000 to $7,000 a month. So that was my target. It took me about 4 months to start getting to that regularly. And that's not premium or anything. That's just pure. And I had about 20,000 worth in the bank. And I just knew I had to work my ass off. And that's what I did. Monday through Friday, I worked pretty much all daylight plus hours. Friday night, we did date night religiously. I had a colonel at my college that I went to a military college. So like professors tell you something, salute, say yes, sir. So that's what I did. He says, when you get married, you do date night religiously. So yes, sir. So that's what we did. Past the first couple months, I didn't work much weekends. But I worked my butt off Monday through Friday for about 5 months. And that was fear, man. That was fear. So it's almost like it's if you don't have that, you're missing something, right?
I honestly, yeah, like that attributes directly to that strong sense of reasoning. Usually when someone has a very definitive reason to be successful, more often than not, it is coupled directly by, if I don't reach this, then if I don't reach X,